The human ship Odyssey drifted through the black sea of space, engines humming softly as it approached the enormous structure of Helix Station. The station was a giant ring of silver and blue, rotating slowly around a dying red star. It was said to be the meeting point of hundreds of alien races, a place where peace, trade, and knowledge were shared freely. For Captain Mara Ellison, this was more than just another diplomatic mission. It was a test. Humanity had only recently joined the Galactic Concord, and this was their first time negotiating trade rights directly with the mysterious alien known as Manager Karath, the one who oversaw all agreements between species. As the Odyssey docked, Mara stood before the airlock with her team, scientists, engineers, and cultural officers. Her uniform was clean, her posture straight, but her heart beat fast. She had read about Karath. Some said he was ancient, older than most known civilizations. Others whispered that he was not truly alive, more machine than being. The airlock opened with a hiss and a group of alien attendants appeared. Their forms were slim and elegant, with shimmering skin that changed color like water in sunlight. But at their center stood Karath. He was tall, twice Mara's height, with smooth silver skin and eyes that glowed softly blue. His movements were slow, graceful, almost like he was underwater. When he spoke, his voice was deep and calm, vibrating through the air like gentle thunder. "Welcome, Captain Ellison of Earth," he said. "Your journey was long. You must be hungry." Mara smiled politely. "We are honored to be here, Manager Karath. And no, we are fine. Thank you for receiving us." The alien tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as if studying her soul. "My hunger is not for food," he said. "I seek understanding." The words echoed in the quiet dock. The human team exchanged puzzled glances. Mara hesitated but decided not to ask yet. She simply nodded and followed as Karath led them into the shining halls of Helix Station. Helix Station was alive with color and light. Creatures of every shape and size moved through its halls. Winged beings, glowing spheres, metallic walkers. Holographic symbols floated in the air, showing directions in hundreds of languages. To Mara, it felt like walking inside a dream of the future. As they moved deeper, Karath spoke of trade routes and energy exchanges, his tone formal and distant. But Mara noticed something odd. Every few minutes his eyes flickered toward her team, watching how they laughed, how they whispered to one another, how they smiled. He seemed less interested in business and more in behavior. During the meeting, Karath asked questions that made the scientists uneasy. Why do humans share food when hungry? Why do you touch each other's shoulders when sad? Why do you celebrate the birth of another when your own time grows shorter? Mara answered carefully each time. Because connection matters to us, she said. We survive better when we care for each other. Karath was silent for a long time. Then he simply said, "Interesting," and continued the negotiations. But his voice carried something new, a hint of emotion, maybe curiosity, maybe confusion. That night, while the humans rested in their guest quarters, a sudden power failure struck the station. The lights flickered and alarms rang. Mara rushed to the corridor where smoke was spreading. Her engineer, Liam Ortega, was already trying to open a sealed cargo bay. Inside, several alien workers were trapped. Oxygen levels were dropping fast. The humans worked together without hesitation. Liam burned his hands, forcing open a manual latch while another crew member used emergency oxygen tanks. Within minutes, they managed to get the doors open and pull the alien workers to safety. One of the rescued creatures, a small, insect-like being, looked up at Liam with glowing green eyes. It touched his burned hand gently as if in thanks. Liam just smiled, wincing through the pain. When the lights returned, Karath appeared. He had been watching the rescue through the station's surveillance systems. His eyes flickered with a strange brightness like a pulse. He walked up to Liam and stared at his injured hand. You risked your life for those who are not your kind, Karath said quietly. Why? Liam shrugged. Because life is life. Doesn't matter what shape it wears. Karath stood silent for a long moment. The blue glow in his chest pulsed faster, brighter. Then he whispered almost to himself, You consume nothing, yet you grow stronger. I do not understand. Later that night, Karath sent a private message to Mara. He requested to meet her alone in the observation chamber, a wide circular room filled with transparent walls, showing the burning red star outside. Mara came, unsure what to expect. Karath stood near the window, his tall figure outlined against the dying sun. The light made his metallic skin shimmer like liquid fire. "You are curious about me," he said without turning. "Yes," Mara admitted. "Your words today, about hunger and understanding, they confused me." Karath finally turned, his face calm but his eyes full of something deep and restless. "My kind are called the Luarkin. Long ago we fed on the energy of dying worlds. We consumed suns, drained planets, absorbed life itself. Our hunger gave us power, until there was nothing left to consume." He paused. "When there was nothing left, we felt nothing. We had destroyed the universe's music, and all that remained was silence." Mara felt a chill. "And now you?" "Now I am the last of us," Karath said softly. "I manage trade among other species. I maintain order. But inside I am empty. My hunger is no longer for energy or power. I hunger for something I do not understand. I have seen you humans, and I think you might hold the answer." He stepped closer, the blue light in his chest glowing brighter. "You smile in pain. You forgive your enemies. You share when you have little. How can a race so fragile hold more strength than those who command stars?" Mara looked at him carefully. "Because strength isn't only in what you take," she said. "It's in what you give." Karath repeated the words slowly as if tasting them. "Strength. In giving." He looked back at the dying sun. "Perhaps that is what I lost." For the next few days, Karath began spending time among the humans. He joined their meals, though he did not eat. He observed them telling jokes, helping one another with tasks and sharing stories about Earth. He listened to their laughter and their sadness. He asked endless questions, always about emotions and purpose, never about trade or power. The station's other species began to whisper again. Some believed Karath was breaking down. Others said he was finally changing, learning something long lost to his people. But none dared to challenge him openly. One evening, Mara found Karath standing alone again in the observation chamber, watching the red star fade behind a swirl of dust. Without looking at her, he spoke softly. "I once believed consumption was survival. Now I see it as death that feeds on itself." Mara joined him at the window. "Maybe understanding is your way out of that," she said. "You can't undo the past, but you can choose a different future." Karath turned his gaze toward her. "A future with humanity? Not just with us," Mara said with a faint smile. "With anyone willing to understand instead of destroy." For the first time since their arrival, Karath smiled, a small, uncertain curve of his strange face. It was awkward, almost mechanical but real. "Then perhaps, Captain Ellison," he said slowly, "you will teach me." Mara nodded. "Gladly." As the red star pulsed outside, Helix Station drifted in silence, a beacon between species. And in that quiet space, something ancient and cold began to feel the first flicker of warmth. Karath looked at the humans one last time before returning to his chambers. He whispered the words that had become his new truth. "My hunger is not for food. I seek understanding." Karath, the alien manager who had once been seen as cold and untouchable, began to walk among the humans every day. He watched them, listened to them, and asked questions that no one had ever asked before. For Captain Mara Ellison, it felt strange but hopeful. Humanity had come to trade for resources and technology, but somehow they had become teachers of something far more valuable: understanding. Karath joined their meals, though he did not eat. He observed how the crew shared food, laughed at small jokes, and argued without hatred. He saw how they comforted each other when someone made a mistake. The simple, ordinary things fascinated him. "You feel joy from giving," Karath said one evening, watching Mara share her last piece of dried fruit with an engineer. "My people took everything and felt nothing. Maybe that is why we disappeared." Mara smiled gently. "Giving connects us. It makes us stronger together. Taking alone leaves only emptiness." Karath lowered his gaze as if ashamed. "Emptiness is all my kind ever knew." The next morning, Karath invited Mara and her team to visit the Central Archive, the heart of Helix Station. It was a vast hall filled with glowing crystal structures that stored the knowledge of thousands of species. The walls shimmered with living light. Karath led them to a section marked with ancient symbols. "This is all that remains of the Luarkin," he said softly. "Our history, our rise, and our fall." The crystals projected images into the air. enormous beings of light feeding on suns, draining whole systems for power. Then came silence, darkness, and extinction. We believed consuming more made us eternal, Karath said. But the more we took, the more we became nothing. Mara looked at him carefully. And now you seek meaning? Yes, he said. But I cannot find it in power or knowledge. I see it only in you, in the way humans care for each other. I wish to understand why. Mara thought for a moment. Then let's start with something simple, a story. They sat on the floor beside one of the glowing crystals. Mara told him about Earth, about the wars, the mistakes, and how humanity had learned to build again and again. She spoke of times when people helped strangers during disasters, when explorers risked everything to save others, and when kindness had changed lives. Karath listened in silence, his eyes glowing faintly. When she finished, he asked softly, "You have suffered much, yet you continue to hope. Why?" "Because without hope," Mara said, "we stop being human." Karath repeated the word hope several times, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. My people once said hope was an illusion, but perhaps it was the one thing we never tried to create. Over the next few days, the station began to change. Other alien species noticed Karath spending more time with humans. He was seen walking beside them, laughing at, or at least trying to. Some called it weakness, others were curious, but not everyone approved. One afternoon, as Mara's team worked in the hangar, they were approached by a delegation of tall, blue-skinned traders from the Vorthon Alliance. Their leader spoke sharply. "Human, what spell have you cast on the manager?" he demanded. "He favors your kind. He ignores others. He is not himself." Mara stood firm. "We didn't cast any spell. We only talked to him," the alien hissed. "Talk is dangerous when it changes old order." Then he turned and left, his eyes burning with distrust. Mara felt uneasy. She could sense trouble coming. That night she went to see Karath in his chamber. The room was dim, filled with floating lights that pulsed like stars. He was standing before a console, looking at a holographic message. His face looked heavier, full of concern. "You heard the Vorthons," Mara said quietly. Karath nodded. "They are not the only ones. Many fear what I am becoming." "Becoming what?" "Becoming alive again," he said softly. "But they will not let me." Mara frowned. "What do you mean?" Karath turned toward her. "There is something you must know. My kind left behind a mind, the Luarcan core. It is the heart of our people, a machine that holds our ancient hunger. It still commands what remains of us. It has sensed my change." Mara's heart sank. "And what will it do?" "It will come," Karath said quietly. "To erase me, and to cleanse anything that caused my corruption." "You mean us?" Mara whispered. Karath nodded. The following days passed in tense silence. The humans continued their mission, but the feeling of peace was gone. Then one morning Helix Station trembled. A wave of dark energy rippled through space. The sky beyond the observation windows turned black as shadows appeared. A fleet of enormous ships, their hulls glowing with the same blue light as Karath's eyes. "The Luarcan core has arrived," Karath said in a voice that was both calm and full of sorrow. Panic spread across the station. Ships prepared to flee. Many species accused the humans of bringing doom, but Mara refused to run. She marched straight to Karath's chamber. He stood before a hologram of the core, a swirling sphere of light and energy, surrounded by thousands of smaller ships. The voice that came from it was cold and vast. "Manager Karath," it said, "you are infected with weakness. Your data shows contamination from primitive minds. You will be cleansed." Karath raised his head. "No," he said firmly. "I have found what you lost, understanding." "Understanding is decay," the core replied. "Only hunger brings survival." Mara stepped forward. "That hunger destroyed you once. Do you want to destroy the galaxy now?" The core ignored her. Its ships began to move closer. Energy beams charged like thunderclouds ready to strike. Karath looked at Mara, his voice low. "They will not listen to logic. But perhaps they will listen to truth." Mara took a deep breath. "Then we show them." She called her crew and ordered a broadcast and a live transmission from Helix Station across all communication channels. Within minutes, the screens across the station lit up with images from Earth. Humans helping each other after disasters, scientists working together, children laughing, strangers protecting strangers. "This is humanity," Mara said over the transmission. "We do not feed on power. We grow by giving. We survive by understanding." Karath joined her on the broadcast. His glowing eyes looked straight into the lens. "My people consumed worlds for light, but our souls grew darker. I see now that humans are stronger because they share their light. I no longer seek to feed, I seek to learn." The message spread across space. Billions watched. The Luarcan fleet paused, their weapons still glowing, their minds processing the strange new emotion that came through the transmission. The core spoke again, its tone uncertain. "You speak of weakness, yet your words create resistance within us." Karath's body glowed brighter. "That is not weakness," he said. "That is life." But not all ships stopped. Some began charging weapons again. The core shouted in fury, "You are broken! You must be erased." Mara's heart pounded. "Karath, what do we do?" He looked at her calmly. "We keep teaching." And then, without warning, he began to walk toward the docking bay, toward the core's projection beam. His body shone like a star. "Karath, stop!" Mara called after him. He turned and smiled softly. "Do not fear. I finally know what I must give." He stepped into the beam. The energy surrounded him, but instead of being torn apart, his light spread outward. Waves of warmth and emotion rippled through the air. The station lights flickered. Aliens across the halls felt something they had never felt before: empathy. Inside every Luarcan ship, the same light appeared. Some captains fell to their knees, overwhelmed by a feeling they could not name. The core screamed in confusion as its systems began to flood with strange human data. Laughter, music, love, hope. Karath's voice echoed across space. "You cannot destroy understanding. It grows even in darkness." And then, with one final pulse of light, the fleet stopped. The weapons powered down. Silence filled the void. Mara stood frozen, her eyes wet. Karath's body was gone, dissolved into light. Only his voice remained in the ship's systems. "Captain Ellison," it said softly, "tell your people, my hunger has ended." The core's image flickered, then vanished. The fleet turned and drifted away, leaving Helix Station untouched. Mara whispered to herself, "You didn't just survive, Karath. You learned." Outside, the dying red star burned quietly, its light reflecting off the station like a promise. The calm that followed the retreat of the Luarcan fleet was unlike anything Helix Station had ever known. The alien races moved cautiously, glancing at one another, trying to understand the change that had swept through their ranks. Even the air seemed lighter, as though Karath's final act had cleansed the tension that hung over the station for centuries. Captain Mara Ellison stood in the observation chamber, staring at the space outside the large transparent window. She could still see fragments of the Luarcan fleet retreating, their forms flickering like shadows against the dying red star. She remembered Karath's words in the last moments of the broadcast. "You cannot destroy understanding. It grows even in darkness." Even now, they echoed in her mind. Inside the station, life slowly returned to normal. Humans and aliens resumed their work, yet something had shifted. Conversations carried warmth, laughter was shared freely, and the crew often found themselves discussing the lessons they had learned from Karath. His presence, even in absence, lingered like a light in the minds of all who had seen him. Mara walked through the hallways, observing the changes. Alien species who once treated humans with suspicion now greeted them with curiosity and respect. The Vorthan traders, once hostile, were quietly observing the humans, trying to understand what had influenced the manager so profoundly. "It's not fear," Liam said as he adjusted a cargo console. "It's reflection. They've never felt what we just showed them." Mara nodded. "Karath made them see themselves. That's the true power of understanding." Days passed and Karath's voice remained in the station systems. It had been recorded, stored, and replayed at intervals across Helix Station. Many aliens listened in silence, some weeping, others staring at the stars as if seeing them for the first time. Humanity's influence was spreading slowly, not by force but by example. One evening, Mara was summoned to the Chamber of Understanding, a new room created in Karath's honor. The walls were lined with floating crystal panels showing images of his life, the rise of the Luarcan, their destruction, and finally, his choice to embrace understanding over hunger. A small group of aliens had gathered there, representatives of several species, each curious and humbled. Mara stepped forward and addressed them. Karath's legacy is not about our species alone. It is about everyone who can choose to understand rather than consume. This chamber is not a monument to him, but a reminder that knowledge and empathy are stronger than power. The crowd murmured in agreement. Even the smallest creatures in the room, insects with wings like stained glass, seemed to lean forward, listening intently. Meanwhile, remnants of the Luarken core remained in the outer system. Though defeated in spirit, the core's systems were still operational, but something within it had changed. For the first time in millennia, it hesitated to act. Karath's broadcast and the flood of human empathy had altered its logic circuits. Its calculations, once cold and precise, now registered unfamiliar data. Compassion, forgiveness, sacrifice, hope. The core's subcommanders, sensing the uncertainty, suggested restoring the core's authority by force. But the core did nothing. For the first time, it could not follow the old command. It lingered in confusion, a shadow in space, unsure whether its version of survival required destruction or adaptation. Back on Helix Station, Mara convened a council of species to discuss trade and cooperation, now under a new philosophy inspired by Karath. Agreements were no longer just about profit or dominance. They were about mutual benefit, respect, and shared learning. A representative from the Trelka Guild, a bird-like species with iridescent feathers, spoke first. Karath taught us that power is empty without understanding. We have seen it, and now we wish to follow it. Humans have shown the way. Other species nodded, some hesitantly, some with fervor. It was a historic moment. The first time the Galactic Conquered had agreed that empathy and cooperation were as valuable as resources or military strength. Mara felt a warmth in her chest. Humanity had not only survived in the galaxy, they had begun to shape it. One quiet night, Mara returned to the observation chamber alone. She watched the red star fading in the distance. The stillness was profound, almost sacred. For a moment she thought she could feel Karath's presence. Not in form, but in essence, in the lingering glow of light and hope he left behind. She whispered softly, as if speaking to him. "You made a difference, Karath. Not just for us, but for all of them." A soft chime echoed in the chamber. The station system projected a message from Karath, recorded before his final transformation. "My hunger is not for food. It is not for power. I have seen the strength of understanding. In giving there is growth. In sharing there is life. Captain Ellison, your species has reminded me what it means to live." Tears filled Mara's eyes. She smiled. "And you reminded the galaxy what it means to feel." Weeks later, the Chamber of Understanding became a gathering place for all who wished to learn from Karath's legacy. Humans told stories of Earth, its struggles, triumphs, and compassion. Aliens shared the same from their own histories. Children from every species came to sit in the center of the chamber, learning that kindness could be stronger than fear. Mara observed the students, human and alien alike. They listened, laughed, and even argued, but without malice. Every story reinforced a simple truth. Strength was not in dominance, but in empathy. Then came the unexpected. A single ship from the Luarken core returned, approaching Helix Station with caution. The humans and aliens watched nervously, but instead of attacking, it slowed and projected a single message. Karath was right. Understanding is survival. It withdrew quietly, leaving the station intact. For the first time, the core acted not as a machine of hunger, but as a witness to the new philosophy that Karath had spread. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had not just survived. They had changed the universe not through war, but through their nature. In the months that followed, Helix Station became a hub of knowledge and cooperation, a place where species came not to conquer but to learn. Mara often walked the corridors listening to stories of bravery, kindness, and ingenuity. The legacy of Karath was everywhere, in the lessons taught, the friendships formed, and the hope that now pulsed through the stars. And sometimes, when she stood in the observation chamber and gazed at the distant red star, she could almost hear him whispering, "My hunger is not for food. I seek understanding," a simple statement, yet a message powerful enough to echo through the galaxy. It was proof that the greatest strength in the universe was not raw power, advanced technology, or endless energy. It was humanity's ability to feel, to give, and to understand. And as Mara looked at the stars, she knew that Karath's final confession would live on, inspiring not just humans but countless alien civilizations. They would remember that in a universe so vast, the most remarkable thing was the choice to care. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy seemed lighter, brighter, and full of possibilities. And humanity, small and fragile as it was, had become a beacon of hope in a cosmos that had long forgotten the meaning of life.